I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners' regular meeting for June 16, 2021. Roll call.
President Zipfel. Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lees.
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
So we have the distinction of having two former commissioners with us tonight. One is Scott Brown and the other one is Tom Landauer, and I would like if they would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Flag, United States of America. God.
Welcome back for the evening. Always good to see the two of you. Thank you. All right. We're going to start with our approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion for approval of this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. All in favor of approving the agenda that is before you and on the screen, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments on agenda items? Commissioner Brown, you can, there's no problem with if you want to wait until the agenda item, or you can do it now. I'll leave it entirely up to you. Well, it's agenda item, so I knew it was something on the agenda. I leave to you when you'd like to do it. Yeah, why don't we, I think that makes sense. I appreciate it, thank you. All right, any other citizens' comments on agenda items? Sure.
Great evening, everyone. Everybody looks so serious. Promise I won't bite, I promise. So, on the agenda of Juneteenth, I've been meditating very long and hard about this conversation, and it kept leading me to one place, speaking about Juneteenth. Before I get into the history, I kept thinking about my great-great-great-grandmother, Georgiana Harper, who was 7 years old, who on June 19th, 1865, got up a slave that day as a then 7-year-old. And it wasn't until the might of the military, of the Union Army, General Gordon Granger, armed with troops, General Order Number 3, and with force had to free not only my great-great-grandmother, but the slaves on the plantations in Texas. Juneteenth is a very, very important day. That is a day of it's our Independence Day, right? It's our Freedom Day. I see that the Senate passed that they were going to make it a national holiday. So I like to say that these issues of injustice and racism and slavery truly have nothing to do with color. It's an odd statement. They have everything to do with right and wrong. If you are on the side of slavery, you're wrong. If you're on the side of injustice, you're wrong, right? This has nothing to do with color at all. I was thinking about this all day, and I'm sitting there going, the history, yes, this is something that needs to be celebrated. It needs to be celebrated by all, right? We need to be on the right side of history, even though it was passed by the Senate yesterday, right? We have an opportunity to be in front of this, right? I often say that love is an action word. You can't tell people that you love them, you have to show them. In this time period, it seems like a lot of people exclaim how much they love black people and people that look like me, but I'm a fan of the actions, right? The actions. What are your actions saying? Words can be hollow, if we can agree. Words can be hollow. So how do we show these things, right? There are certain things that should be foregone conclusions that they should be already in effect, right? the anti-lynching bill should be in effect, right? There is no way that we're still talking about a bill that has been trying to be passed since the early 1900s. Certain things just should be. To me, these are one of those. This is one of those things that just should be. Juneteenth just should be. Amazingly enough, this weekend on Saturday, Juneteenth, affectionately known as Juneteenth, we'll be having a celebration in Lansdale Memorial Park. And for those who are confused about the history or the overall celebration of it, I invite you to attend. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful event. I'm looking forward to seeing all you wonderful faces there. I wanted to thank my friend, if I may call him my friend, I'm sure he will not object to that, Chief Bill Tierney, for inviting me tonight to actually speak on. When we start talking about this history, my grandmother is still alive, and she was born on a sharecropping farm. So I need people, that's to make people understand that these things didn't happen a gazillion years ago. She's still alive, and she tells me stories that are absolutely atrocious. It's disgusting. But that is, like I said, to say that these things are real. She's still here. These things, like I said, need to happen, need to transpire as soon as possible. People need to understand the history, all of the history, just not partial. That's all I'm going to say on that topic. Thank you. I appreciate your time, appreciate your ear, appreciate the opportunity to express to you how beautiful and how needed a Juneteenth, commemoration and Juneteenth celebration, and to honor that date needs to be in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Corinne Landauer, and I come to you first very grateful, yes, for the opportunity to be able to come as a representative for the Pennsylvania Democratic Montgomery County Chapter Black Caucus. I sent a letter yesterday evening to all of the members of the board, all of the commissioners, and this was the request of the Pennsylvania Democratic Black Caucus Montgomery County Chapter. We are requesting that it hereby be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Hatfield Township at the June 16th, 2021 meeting, council board meeting, that June 19th be observed annually by the township as a municipal holiday called Juneteenth Independence Day until repealed or rescinded by subsequent act of the board. And what I will say is this: Juneteenth has been inducted as a holiday by the state of Pennsylvania as of 2020. It has been, as of yesterday, as passed unanimously by the Senate in a bipartisan act, going to be a federal holiday. And we ask that all 64 municipalities of Montgomery County also embrace this day of freedom for Americans. And we thank you all for your consideration, and we ask that you pass this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and public. I'm Tom Landauer from 540 Cowpath Road and a former commissioner. I want to talk to you about two different agenda items. First of all, regarding your discussion on Juneteenth, I urge you not just to make it some sort of proclamation, but do the right thing and make it a municipal holiday. You've got 47 states that have done that, including PA. You know Montgomery County has taken it as a county holiday, and the federal government is about to. It is time, in fact, it's way past time, we do the right thing in Hatfield and recognize Juneteenth as a municipal holiday. It's a day of freedom, representing freedom for all Americans, not just Black Americans, but all of us. And that's something extremely important. On the other subject that I want to talk to you agenda-wise, Warner Street traffic island. That's something that, when I was the commissioner, I was very proud of it being implemented. And I think it's a shame that it's going away. If you looked at what the results were right after that was put up, the traffic studies and things, it had a tremendous calming effect. That stretch there was extremely hazardous. And I'm disappointed if it goes away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Any other citizens' comments on agenda items? Is it an agenda item, sir? Pool? If you would, citizens' comments at the end is for non-agenda items. Why don't we save it for then? Okay. Any others?
It'll be quick. I'm Cindy Bourgeois, 1228 Quincy Court, Hatfield, PA. Just want to thank Mr. Muhammad for coming tonight, and I'm in favor of this holiday. And I just want to say this is not a partisan issue. This is for all Americans and all people, all people. I'm sorry it's taken us this long to get here, and there's still a long road ahead to make it so everybody has the same opportunities in our country, and everybody can eat, and everybody can go to school and not struggle. And I know we all want that, and we want to make sure everything's good with our neighbors. So thank you for coming, Mr. Muhammad.
So for those of you who were not here at our last meeting, Cindy, who was just at the podium, was kind enough to share with the commissioners a book called On Juneteenth by Annette Gordon Reed. It's a very good read, and actually the beginning of it has probably got the best summary, description of the holiday itself. And I want to thank her for sharing that with us, and kind of stepping on my own toes because I was going to mention that a little bit later. But I thought it made sense since you came up to the podium now. So again, on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you for that. And a little bit later, if I have the opportunity, I'm going to read that quick summary because I think it's excellent. So, okay, any other agenda item, citizens' comments? Right, so we just have a quick housekeeping item next, which is consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items that are on your agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lees. Second. Second by Vice President Rogers. For those of you with us and watching, the consent items include the Board of Commissioners' regular meeting minutes of May 26, the HTMA monthly budget report for April and for May, the HTMA meeting minutes for April 13, the Treasurer's report for the month of June, the bills payable, paid bills, 0. Unpaid bills in the amount of $451,991.78. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving those into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right, we're going to jump into the fun stuff, which is always good. We always like leading off meetings with that. And that is first to honor our third Hatfield hero. And then also to talk about our Juneteenth celebration and proclamation and the board's public proclamation with regard to the holiday. So let me start by asking Sheikh Anwar Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad, if you would, join me down at the podium. And we have some, you are our Hatfield hero. For those of you who don't know what that means, probably a couple of months ago, we recognized that there are people in our community, either they live here or they run a business or they run an organization that has had such a profound impact on Hatfield in particular and its residents, that we said, you know what, especially given the year that we had in 2020, there's no reason that we shouldn't be recognizing and honoring these folks. And Mr. Muhammad is with us tonight. He's one of our honorees, and I will join you at the podium just as I come down. Commissioner Brown, just to make sure that I did not step on your toes, I'm assuming that your comment was going to be with regard to a traffic item, or was it, or if it's something else, you can come up to the podium now. That's just pointed out to me that maybe I was being presumptuous, but I got lucky.
President Zipfel, while you're making your way over to the podium, would like to announce to everybody, I just got a notice on my phone that Congress did approve. The House just passed, so Juneteenth has become a federal holiday.
Okay. So if I can begin by kind of reiterating just for a moment why we have the Hatfield Heroes, right? And again, it's because there are times in a community like ours when you need to recognize people who have had a profound impact. And there's a lot of people that do wonderful things. So what we're going to try and do is honor those in particular who we found have had an impact on a larger group. And I think Mr. Muhammad clearly falls into that category without any question. So let me do a little introduction about him, and then I'll read the proclamation in his honor. And I learned a little bit about you as a part of this process, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
So, yep, all good things. So we're honored to welcome and recognize Hatfield resident Sheikh Anwar Muhammad as this month's Hatfield Hero. Beside being named our hero for the month, Sheikh is here tonight to join us in recognizing Juneteenth and to help us all understand the importance and history of this celebration, which we will do right after we read Mr. Muhammad's proclamation. So Sheikh is the proprietor of the Black Reserve Bookstore in Lansdale and the president of the NAACP Ambler branch. And by the way, we know that you are great friends with Chief, and I think that he is probably very happy that you mentioned him and recognized him in that regard. So before I read the proclamation, though, and introduce him, we want to thank him for his ongoing commitment and relationships he has established with the Hatfield Police, in particular with Chief Tierney. Chief Tierney speaks very highly of you. He really has, always has, and is often telling us about the events and meetings he attends with you. We're very proud of our police department under Chief's leadership, although we tend to tease him throughout our meetings. You might see that a little bit tonight. And we understand the support, the work that they do and that your organization does as well. We understand that one of your main goals is to make sure children feel safe in their community and that they should not be fearful of the police, which of course is a wonderful effort. The Hatfield Township Police is regularly working on its relationship and outreach with the community and children in particular. It was great to see our officers participating this last weekend in a community softball game that I believe you had organized. And won. Okay.
There's some question about
I'll let you two argue that out a little bit. We may give Chief the opportunity to say a few words as well. You might not want to let him though. So our goals are, of course, to align yours organization and our interests and the police as well. And we really do appreciate the effort and time that you have given not only Hatfield but the Hatfield Police in particular. It means quite a bit to us. And so for that and with that, I'm going to read the proclamation that we have put together for you. It reads as follows. Whereas the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners desire to recognize Sheikh Anwar Muhammad as the Hatfield Hero for the month of June, and whereas Sheikh Muhammad is a resident of Hatfield Township and proprietor of the Black Reserve Bookstore in Lansdale Borough. We don't normally mention other townships here, or boroughs, so that's a big deal that we mentioned that, by the way. Whereas Sheikh Muhammad is the president of the NAACP Ambler branch and has worked tirelessly to help build positive relationship with the Hatfield Township Police Department. And whereas Sheikh Muhammad was instrumental in drafting a community outreach and engagement plan, which we received and read and joined in with, and securing support from the area police departments, including Hatfield Township's Chief of Police, William J. Tierney. And whereas the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners is grateful to have Sheikh Muhammad join them in celebrating Juneteenth and to provide the historical and modern-day significance of the holiday for our community. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed, in accordance with the foregoing, that the Board of Commissioners of Hatfield Township does hereby endorse this proclamation as recognition to one of Hatfield's heroes, Sheikh Anwar Mohammed, for his commitment and dedication to strengthening community bonds within Hatfield Township and the region, proclaimed and presented this 16th day of June 2021. Congratulations, and thank you for everything.
Wow, this is beautiful. Official too, it's fancy. So first off, well, definitely I would like to thank Board of Commissioners for this. I appreciate Hatfield Board of Commissioners. Thank you. Chief Tierney, William, as they said. It's the first time I heard somebody say that to you. I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't thank my beautiful wife, and my boys are here. The rest of my family is not, but they are. Thank you, thank you. I couldn't do my superhero work if it wasn't for them. So anyone who knows me knows that I talk about books a lot. I'm a bookstore owner. There's books in particular that changed my life's trajectory, right? One of those books, Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. Eldridge Cleaver was the Minister of Information for the Black Panther Party, okay? That book was a bestseller in the 60s when it came out. A bestseller in the 60s. Yeah, in that tumultuous time period, right? If nobody ever got anything else from this book, there's a quote that struck me to a chord when I was in my early 20s, and I lived my life with this quote. He said, "You're either part of the problem or part of the solution. I know that I'm part of the solution. That's what I choose to be." All of these events, all of these conversations, they call them tough, not too tough for me, right? These tough conversations that need to transpire, they have to. The children feeling comfortable with interactions with the police, they have to. The softball game that we put together, and that was an amazing success that hopefully some of you got to be a part of and really see. To see the joy on the faces of the children interacting with the officers. They didn't see them as officers. They saw them as people. And the officers, in turn, saw them as people. There were children there that never picked up a bat, let alone played softball. And the officers helping them, right? It was amazing. So amazing. I'm looking forward to doing it again annually. It's something that I feel needs to transpire annually. I'm amazed. I'm speechless. I appreciate this. I don't do what I do for this. I do what I do for the little people first, and then, the big people, but definitely the little people, because who advocates for them, right? So everything that I do, the store, the NAACP, everything is for the young people first. So thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Lights, camera, action. Good thing. It's a good thing your wife was in that picture.
Okay, so I just told him that he's not done, though. Because we're going to have our celebration with regard to Juneteenth. I have a proclamation to read, and I'm so hoping that I'm not going to step all over your toes with a very brief summary of the history of it, but I really did think that what Cindy brought to us was just so good. And if it's okay, I'd like to, and feel free as you speak to, completely ignore what I say. But let me just read this summary, because I think for people who are not entirely sure what Juneteenth is and how it's been celebrated and what it really means. I think this really puts it in from a historical perspective. It really is a great explanation that I think will make tremendous sense to everyone. So June 19th, 1865, shortened to Juneteenth, was the day that enslaved African Americans in Texas were told that slavery had ended. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed, and just over 2 months after Confederate General Robert E. Lee had surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox. Despite the formal surrender, the Confederate Army had continued to fight on in Texas until mid-May. It was only after they finally surrendered that Major General Gordon Granger, while at his headquarters in Galveston, Texas, prepared General Order No. 3, announcing the end of legalized slavery in the state. And so that's the summary that I wanted to read because, it's just, to me, it's so interesting from a historical perspective, and now we get to celebrate the day. It's striking that it took so long for those to be freed, the slaves to be freed at that time, 2 years after Emancipation Proclamation. And so it just kind of highlights that it's about time. Someone else said it's about time. The recognition is long overdue. So with that, please let me read resolution, and Mr. Muhammad, if you want to join me. Please let me read resolution 21-25. Whereas Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day, is a holiday celebrating the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the United States. And whereas on June 19, 1865, General Gordon Granger announced that slaves in Texas were free by order of the President of the United States, the announcement came 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official January 1, 1863. Whereas freedmen in Texas organized the first of what became the annual celebration of Jubilee Day on June 19, and whereas June 19 has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth by combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African community for over 150 years. And whereas the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners does hereby resolve that Juneteenth Independence Day will be observed annually on June 19th by Hatfield Township as a day to reflect, rejoice, and plan for a brighter future as we continue to address racial injustices together in our society today. Resolved and presented this 16th day of June 2021. Congratulations to you and to all of us. So let's celebrate.
That was a
I
very
hope
good
I didn't
job.
steal all your thunder.
No, that was a very good job. I think the only part that I would add is, even after Juneteenth, it took till, there was still a lot of resistance to the slaves being freed. And it took till about, December, when the 13th Amendment was actually passed. So there were still black people that weren't allowed to be free. So it's amazing that this is getting passed. I know people are saying, it's long time coming, right? But the history of it is so incredible, right? That I love the aspect that as a black man that I love as a black person is the resilience, the fight, the strength. And when I see, especially the older black people, everything they had to go through, the great ordeal, that it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm hoping that the beautiful, beautiful blurb that you read, that a lot of people look into it and see how beautiful it is and start looking at the types of things that were done in celebration with this event. And I know there are a lot of Juneteenth events springing up everywhere, which is beautiful within itself, that, hey, listen, you're allowed to participate. You're allowed to come. We want you to come. We want you to come and witness this majesty, right? Witness this celebration of blackness. That's what it is. It's a celebration of blackness. Yes, not a lot of times, especially when we learn about history, do we hear those two words synonymous with each other, right? A celebration of blackness. Yes, that's not a cuss word. So please don't be shy. When Saturday comes, find you a Juneteenth event and just come. Just come and experience. Experience the sounds, experience the performances, experience the food, the culture, the rich culture that we have been, well, not we, but have been kept away from a lot of people for a very long time, right? So no, it's time. It's time for everybody to learn. I say to people that, black people been here for a couple days, a few days in this country. I don't know if you guys heard of that. In that time period, I'm positive that you guys really don't know anything about us. And that's sad to me. Because when you build these relationships, in any mutually beneficial relationship, for it to bloom and blossom and to be amazing, it takes a mutual exchange of information. Mutual, meaning you talk and I listen attentively, right? And then guess what? We swap roles. Then you listen, then I talk, right? And that's how we build together. It's not one-sided. There are many different variations to this story. So, I look forward to seeing everybody on Juneteenth. Thank you. Great job. Great job.
All right.
Mr. President, before you move forward, just one technical clarification. Now that we switched that to a resolution, if you could just take a motion or have a motion made by a board member.
That's right. That's
so
right.
that can be approved, and then we can put it in the resolution book, and it will stay historically over time.
All right. The chair's going to take the opportunity to make the motion that we approve Resolution 21-25. Hold on, let me make sure I've got. That's right. The chair will make a motion to approve Resolution-2125, which is the resolution with regard to the celebration of Juneteenth. Is there a second?
Second.
Take that as a second from all commissioners.
Got it.
And the resolution is as read previously. And is there any questions or comments from commissioners? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. And the resolution is approved. Thank you. Thanks for everybody. All right. Now the doldrums of the rest of the meeting. And this is where I invite people to stick around if they like, but we understand if you don't. Feel free to stay, ask questions. We encourage it, but we also understand people have their lives. Thank you for attending this evening. We do greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to jump into the committee reports. First is the Planning and Zoning Committee. Vice President Rogers.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Public Works Committee, Commissioner Lees.
Thank you, Mr. President. The paving is finished in School Road Park. Please take a look when you get a chance. They did a great job with the trails and the parking lot. Along with the new digital sign, it's almost like we have a brand new park. Special thanks to the sports groups for being patient and working around the paving contractors. The 2021 road paving program should begin soon and be completed over the next few months. As a reminder, the roads that are being paved for this year are Foster, Peachtree, Beach, Diamond, Oak, Overbrook, and Berge from Penn to 309. The other thing I have on the agenda, Mr. President, is the traffic island removal on East Walnut Street. So let me give everyone a little bit of background here. So when I was knocking doors running for office, just about every resident at East Walnut Street that I talked to, the vast majority of them asked me, once I got elected, to please have the islands removed from the East Walnut Street, because the cars have been running down the middle of the islands. They've been crashing into the islands. So what we did was, Aaron, was that like October, November, we did a mail out to all the residents.
Yep.
And what do we have, 34 residents that responded, about that, 34?
I have a slide from that from your town hall meeting, Commissioner Lee's. 35 returned, 22 voted to remove, 12 to keep, one
Was
undecided.
undecided. So after we did that, we had a public meeting for the residents of East Walnut Street down at the Calmer Firehouse. And Chief Tierney was there, Anton, our traffic engineer, was there, as well as myself and Mr. Bebro. And we had a long discussion about it. And Chief will tell you, he's been a patrolman here since 1985. That road's always been a hotbed of speeding. We told the residents that if we removed the traffic islands, that the speeding problem would just return. It would just become another highway again. So they said, okay, now this wasn't all the residents that voted, but there was, how many residents appeared at the meeting? Do you remember? I think it was about
A good amount, 40 to 50?
40 to
let's say.
50.
We had a full room.
We had a full room, so we had talked about making the islands more visible and seeing what happens with that and deciding further what we were going to do. So I want to say, how long ago was that, Chief? About 5 weeks ago we had that accident on East Walnut Street. So a car was coming down East Walnut Street, wasn't paying attention, texting, whatever. I'm not sure the exact particulars. But the car struck the island and ended up crashing into a homeowner's house. That resident contacted me and is like, these traffic islands need to come out. I don't know why these other residents have the opportunity to vote on this. It should just be the homeowners that have the islands in front of their property. We need to have them removed. They're a safety hazard. So we talked about it, and I talked about it with Commissioner Ziffel and a couple of other commissioners, and we decided that in the interest of safety, that we would consider removing the islands for the residents, and that the residents understand that we're going to, using Anton and his traffic engineers, we're going to paint and try and narrow that street down a little bit to kind of try and slow things down. But the only way to slow it down really is through traffic enforcement, and with the job that the police department has to do and the number of officers that are on the street, we can't have a car sit on that street all the time, okay? We can't use speed cameras on that street. It's illegal. We're not allowed to use speed cameras on that street. So the residents that are involved understand that if we take those islands out, that the speeding is going to return, but their concern is the cars hitting the islands and then running into their houses. So, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. We have to do something for the people that live on the street. I don't have a dog in the fight, neither does any of the other commissioners. We don't live on that street, but when the vast majority of the residents come to us and say they want them out, we're going to have to take them out. So I know Commissioner Brown wanted to talk about it. I know Commissioner Landauer, sir, I know you wanted to talk about it. I understand that you guys were involved in putting them in. I don't want to take them out personally, but if that's what the residents want, then I kind of have to bend to what the residents want, and the rest of the commissioners too. So, Commissioner Brown, if you wanted to make a comment, you're more than welcome, sir.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, good evening. I'm Scott Brown, 2177 Rebecca Drive. And my issue pales in comparison to the Juneteenth and Hatfield Hero celebration, but is in fact relevant to the safety of the township. We can't be too cavalier about this decision because it was made by resolution. So the only way we can change it is by resolution of a vote by the full board. We spent $100,000, in excess of $100,000 to put that project in, over 2 years of study, hired McMahon Associates to come in because they were the best creative problem solvers in traffic management that we could find at the time. So McMahon is here because of the Walnut Street project. This is more than just the people who live on Walnut Street. This is our money. This is our safety, because we spent a lot of money to put it in. We're going to have to spend money to take it out. Just a little background, because my experience was similar. When I got elected, this room was full of Walnut Street residents that complained about speeding on Walnut Street. It was full. You've got to do something about Walnut Street. Well, we did a lot of things. First of all, we brought in police, put one down at the Boy Scout cabin, put some in somebody's driveway. And they came back the next meeting and said that was fine while they were there, but they're not there all day long. And then we did an extensive enforcement. Within a 2-hour time, we had 5 or 6 officers make 25 stops in 2 hours. And we heard later that was fine, but after they go, they're speeding again. So part of it is not just surveying. Part of our job is being an educator. When you educate people, you bring them from one place to a safer place. So of course, in the 16, 18 years since this project was put in, people have changed, and we have not educated them. So what happened, what we did, is we did a study, traffic study. Has a traffic study been done recently? So we did a traffic study, extensive traffic study, to find out what was going on in Walnut Street. So what's unique about Walnut Street in Hatfield Township? Number one, more cars travel Walnut Street than any other Hatfield-owned, Township-owned street. At that time, over 13,000 per day on East Walnut Street, 9,000 a day on West Walnut Street. Number two, cars were speeding, some measured in excess of 70 miles an hour. And three, and most significantly, the houses are close to the road. So the traffic impacts the residents more than it would, let's say, on Rebecca Drive. So we hired McMahon because we had a traffic engineer that really couldn't come up with anything that satisfied Public Works, Public Safety, and the Colmar Fire Company. All stakeholders were involved. And with McMahon's help, we came up with this solution. It's not a perfect solution, but we did a post-study. And what did we learn? It worked. And when the statisticians in our group know that it's the top quadrants that had the greatest effect. So the people going 30 mile an hour, it maybe only slowed them to 28. But no more cars going 70. No more cars going 65. So the top quadrants, the excessive speed was dropped significantly. So let's talk about reportable accidents. Before the traffic calming was put in, we had a list of the number of reportable accidents. We had parking on both sides, cars were sideswiped, mirrors were knocked off, reportable accidents. For several years, and I don't know what the records are showing today, for several years after the project was completed, there were no reportable accidents. Parking was safer. You could park on the side, the bump outs protected you. So, this was all written up, and as any scientist knows, you do a pre-study and a post-study, and you can prove whether it made a difference. And yes, it made a difference. Now, we need to educate people and show them the data. The data's still there, right? Our traffic engineers can produce it and show people and convince people speeding is going down. You don't do that anecdotally. You do that with data. So we have $100,000 invested, a lot of time and energy, study over 2 years, came up with a solution, and what happened? We broadcast this solution around the state, and it was an award winner. At state meetings, we have an award. The award is probably hidden back there somewhere, where we won an award, Hatfield Township, for significant traffic calming that has not been replicated very much in our area. So, I'm afraid, and I don't live on Walnut Street, that we're going to go through the same cycle. And you can call it like the locusts. Every 7 years, they'll come back. They'll come back and say, my God, they're speeding. Over 70 mile an hour. And guess what else is less? Less 18-wheelers. We had a man that used to come to every meeting and tell us how many 18-wheelers came through today. So they don't come through there as many. The count's way down. I don't know what it is now. The trucks going to the sewer plant don't come through that street. They go up to Treewig Town. That all changed because it was more difficult to navigate that. So I would suggest before we do anything, we do a study and compare it with the post-study from the last time it was done. So we have some data. So you give people an opportunity to meet. And of course I'd want a perfect situation in front of my house. But what could it be? What's it going to be? So you're going to have to make some decisions. Are you going to do parking on both sides? It's going to have to be restriped. I don't know about drainage and all those kinds of things. But I don't live on Walnut Street, but it's my money, my tax money that helped put that in. It's my tax money that's going to pay to take it out, Public Works money, and it just cannot be done unless we have due diligence. And that's what you guys have to do. It's got to be voted on. This is just not something that somebody in an office somewhere decides we're taking it out because people said so. We have to have an action item that's advertised and voted on this board, so everybody is responsible for what's happened. We went through that before. It took 2 years, but it was done as well as it can. And the other thing, while you're doing a traffic study, I'd recommend doing East and West Walnut Street right now, because you can tell pretty similar situations. Are the average speeds faster on East or West? Well, you know what the answer is going to be, but you should have the data to show that. So I thank you. I miss these meetings. I won't be back too often, but since I was involved in this, and I heard the same things when I knocked on doors on Walnut Street, Scott, the traffic here is terrible. And different people do different things about it. So thank you for the time, and I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So a few things. First is you're welcome anytime, as often as you like. And
Can't rev up this often, I'm getting old.
And second is, this is a topic for discussion. There's no expectation of action to be taken this evening. And I'm thrilled that we have not only a former commissioner who I consider a great friend, but also someone who has got the historical background who's willing to come and share it with us.
Sure.
Because that is so critical to have people look, I'm preaching to the choir right now. The people who are here are the people who are interested to appear at the meetings. And there's people who watch regularly as well, so I give them great credit too. So I want to say thank you to Scott on behalf of the entire board. I also didn't want anyone to think that because it was on the agenda for discussion that there was an action item tonight. It's not. We actually want the feedback and we need the feedback. And Brian, I won't put you on the spot now about a traffic study and what that would look like, but I suspect that that'll be something that we'll be talking about, in the very near future, I suspect. So, yes, Cindy, if you have something.
I just wanted to comment. I hadn't heard anything about this before now. One of the hard things about being somebody who was elected, or being a school principal, or being a chief of police, or being a parent, is sometimes you should not take action based upon complaints. And I think that the action needs to be based on information. Because a lot of times when people are complaining, they are looking at their own narrow situation. And I grieve for this family that had their house crashed into. I think it's terrible. And I'm really sorry that happened. But I think it's very important, before we make decisions in our town, that we do our due diligence. And it's not always about money. It's not just money. It's about people's lives. And so we need the information, and then we need to make the best decision for the most people before we go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just address a couple things, Scott. Like I said, Chief was there, and we did educate the residents about the history of what was going on with the road and the speeds. We also had videotape there from home security cameras that shows the car straddling the double yellow line and just flying down the middle of the road and avoiding the traffic islands. So there are some instances where speeds are upwards of 50 plus miles an hour as people straddle that road in the middle of the night and come flying down there. They were made quite aware. So that's why we're discussing it. We're bringing it up. Chief, do you have any idea how many tickets we've written there this year? Ballpark? I don't want to put you on the spot.
I do not.
Plus or minus one.
For year 2021, maybe 10?
Maybe 10 this year? Okay. And the year before that, any idea ballpark? I know you gave it to me when we were over there, but
People haven't,
about 20, 25 for the year prior. So, That's all I have, Mr.
Yeah,
President.
so it's a great topic for discussion, and we'll carry it into another meeting, and then we'll discuss consider traffic study. We'll get guidance from our consultants and staff. So, okay. Commissioner Lees, anything else on Public Works?
No, sir, that's it.
I'm looking around the room, everyone stayed. I must have really guilted you folks into sticking around, didn't I? It's okay. You're not insulting us. All right, we're going to jump into the Parks and Recreation Committee. Commissioner Zimmerman.
A lot going on as usual. Programming, we have an International Day of Yoga, which will be Monday, the 21st at 6:30 to 7:30 out in the School Road Park Amphitheater. And pre-registration is required, but it is a free event. Bring a non-perishable item to donate to a local food bank. Pickleball, the summer program has started Monday through Friday, 8 to 12. It'll run through middle of October. Cost for that as well. The Storytime series for June. The book is Pete the Cat and the Cool Caterpillar by James Dean. $5 and includes a storybook and activity kits. Children can activity kit individually or do it as a family. So you can pick up books and your kits between June 7th and the 18th. Music Feast is coming back. We're going to have our first concert on Monday the 28th, 6 p.m. The group is called Night Flight, and that'll be in the park. Music only this year. No food will be sold or given out, but you're welcome to bring your own food or snacks to the second page. Hatfield Aquatic Center, of course, it's been open now, full-time. And all the information you need, if you haven't registered, is on the Township website. The center's only available to season pass holders and Hatfield Township borough residents this season. For all the information, because there are a lot of changes and new policies. Summer camp is also starting. Also available on the website if you want to sign your children up for that. We've got some specialty camps coming up with the Mad Scientist and Jump Sports to offer a variety, and agent camp as well. And then there'll be virtual camps for those that want that option. So make sure you check out the website for those camps. A whole lot of new things going on, like Commissioner Lees mentioned about the paving out there, and trails, new paths in the parking lots, and of course we did the pickleball is all brand new, that was resurfaced, and a lot of new things going on, so weather's great, get out and enjoy.
So pickleball. Dave, for those of you who are, kind of new to our meetings, this is a very, very popular topic here at our meetings, and remarkably well known in Hatfield in general. We are something of a regional hub for pickleball play. And so I see a couple expressions I do acknowledge. 7-8 years ago, I think it was, when a group from Tarrington Village came and started to talk about pickleball, I had no clue what they were talking about. Now we know it is, I thought it was a fad, it was just going to go away. We just repaved, and then Vice President and I, Rogers, we just opened up, I guess, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, the new courts, one early morning at 8 a.m. on a Monday. And I have to tell you, I have never seen so many people so excited about just, okay, cut that ribbon and let's get going. Within a minute of cutting the ribbon and having the recognition of the newly paved pickleball courts, every court was full. People were just couldn't have been any happier, and we noted then, and I'll note now again, that for us as commissioners, it's more than just having these courts repaved, because there's a lot to this position. It's an unpaid volunteer elected position. That's what I call it. There's a lot to it that's, making sure that to a certain extent, making sure that the potholes are filled and the plowing is done. Not real exciting stuff. But that day when we got to see so many people really just enjoy each other's company and having such a fantastic time, it really made all the other things, kind of the mundane things that we do, very much worth it. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with pickleball, I have to tell you, it really is quite a thing, and it's growing rapidly. And one last item, and that is I want to thank our staff. for the great effort that they put into making sure that that was done. We mentioned it at the dedication of the pickleball courts, but I wanted to do it again publicly here at a meeting. They did a fantastic job. I want to thank them for all of their efforts because it wasn't just a simple, oh, just get a contractor and get it done. There was a lot more to it. So, Aaron, if you would, not only for you, but also to the rest of your staff, for those who worked on it, if you would send our thank yous.
I'd be happy to. Thanks, Mr. President. By the way, the contractor was a Hatfield resident as well.
Oh,
So
really?
This was a Hatfield project in every sense.
Nice, nice. They're great courts. They look great. Okay, Public Safety is next. I have nothing to report on that. And Finance Committee, Commissioner Andrews.
I do, but it's not nearly as riveting as pickleball sports are. Just an update, we are nearly halfway through 2021 already. I want to share some early observations about how the year is going from a financial perspective.
Bless you.
God bless you. And before we find ourselves in a budget season in the fall. So from a revenue perspective, we are slightly behind last year in the collection of real estate taxes, but just not enough to be concerned just yet. Transfer taxes have increased, but only slightly. The local real estate market is hot, but the supply is limited, so the transactions aren't as high as prior years. Earned income tax collection has increased from last year, which is a good sign that the Hatfield community is back to work since the pandemic. Permit fees are up significantly compared to last year. Last year's shutdown impacted all of the projects locally, but everything is on ahead now. Expenses, the biggest expense difference this year compared to last year is the cost of road salt and overtime for dealing with many winter storms. Despite all the increases, we still projected to come in slightly under budget overall unless the winter is harsh at the end of this year. Mentioned twice already, the road paving and trail parking lot paving projects will be done under budget and are well underway. This year there's less capital purchases. As we determined by the board, we didn't think it was a good idea to go out and buy things right away because of the pandemic, so we kind of held that back when we formulate the budget. Have funds from the federal government to help offset prior losses and make investments into the infrastructure. We are still working through that process to determine what projects will be eligible. Overall, the township remains in very good, strong financial position, thanks to the disciplined approach by the board over the past several years. We have not had a tax increase in 7 years. We'll do everything we can to make that 8 in a row this fall. Continue to invest more into our parks and road paving and infrastructure while containing costs where we can. I'm not sure whether you're familiar or not, but come this September, we will start talking about the budget for 2022. That's all that I have.
All right, I'm going to jump right into the one action item that we have tonight, and that is Resolution 21-24. Is there a motion for approval with regard to the Hatfield Industrial Development Authority project? Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Vice President Rogers. Aaron, I think you have this one.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. President. This is essentially a housekeeping item, I would consider it. The board's very familiar with these transactions, residents probably not so much. Hatfield has two what we call financing authorities. Essentially, it's a conduit for certain projects that qualify and are eligible to receive tax-free financing at a low interest rate. So we have the IDA, the Industrial Development Authority, and we have the North Penn Health and Hospital Education Authority. Both boards are appointed by our elected officials. When a transaction goes through these authorities, there are no taxpayer money being spent. There's no liability to the township. It's simply a transaction through a bank, through this financing conduit, and then that transaction then generates a fee, which is then up to the board to determine how that fee gets reinvested into our community. So the commissioners are very familiar with the visible projects over the last few years that this authority and our other authority have reinvested into, such as our detective unit on Richmond Road, our employee gym, the police building, Frick's Trail. A lot of great public projects, visible public projects have benefited because of these transactions. So this one specifically, commissioners, is for the Central Montgomery Votech School for $2.75 million for some capital projects and some renovations of its existing facilities. So again, the projects don't have to be in Hatfield. The projects have to be in the region, and there's no taxpayer money involved whatsoever. But the fee will be reinvested into the Hatfield community once the IDA board determines what is a priority. And we obviously always are asking. They are not compelled or required to reinvest into township projects. IDAs can invest into the Boy Scouts and Little Leagues and other public-type organizations. Thankfully, we have a good relationship with this group, and they have specific targeted projects that they like to support, such as the police and other public projects. So we're grateful for the funds that have come back our way through these transactions approved by the board.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right, then I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 21-24, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Two last items, Township Staff Report. Aaron, I think you've got this first one, which is a DCED grant application. It's for the design of Welsh and Orvilla intersections.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had a lot of discussion tonight about traffic, and traffic is not something that we hear about it often on every intersection, on every corridor. The most discussed intersection by far was Cowpath and Orvilla for the last decade. And let's hope everybody's still happy with that intersection. But thanks to the commissioners up here, they fixed it, right? It was dangerous. It was discussed too often. We even had a cake with a picture of it on it at one point over the years. The second intersection that has been discussed often and considered a priority for the commissioners to fix is this one, Welsh and Orvilla. And I know we're all familiar with this, but just to give you an aerial for a visual, I think we can understand things better when we're looking at it. And you can see, in knowing this intersection, not going to be an easy one to fix. We have a cemetery, a gas station, and another township. So we're not running from it, though. We're going to run at it, and hopefully we're going to do something. So what the discussion is simply tonight, just to let the board know that next month's meeting, we'll have a resolution in front of the board to consider to submit this grant application. We have a partner, Talmenton Township. So the one advantage we have is that the cost will be split evenly. Unlike Cowpath or Villa, where we were the lone wolf in that project, this one we do have a municipal partner, which will move us up the ranks for the applications for grant funding. It will also obviously lessen the burden on the taxpayers. So our engineer McMahon, who Commissioner Brown referenced and introduced how McMahon came to the township and has since secured about $10 million worth of grant funding. We're going to be submitting an application for the design of the intersection. So we don't know how to fix it. This is just a on the road view. There's no turning lanes, and everybody in this room has been backed up in that intersection dozens of times, if not daily. So we don't know how to fix it, but that's why we're seeking money from DCED. So hopefully the state will help us, and I'm sure we'll have support from Representative Malagary and Senator Collette. Secure the funding, do the design, same process as Cowpath or Villa. Get funding for design, decide how to fix it, and then start working with the residents and the neighbors on implementing a plan. Obviously, the cemetery is not in play. We're not going in that direction, but we have 3 other property owners that we are going to be talking to. So hopefully we'll get the funding and then we'll move forward. But we all know the process. The board's been involved in these projects, so one step at a time. This is the first step. So next month, resolution to submit a grant application.
All right. That's good news. We'll look forward to it in next meeting. Anything else under the staff reports?
That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, our last item is our solicitor's report. John, property assessment settlement, 2975 Advance Lane.
Yes, tonight I'm seeking a motion to approve the tax assessment appeal for 2975 Advance Lane. It's a tax assessment increase which will result in an increase in tax dollars to Township in the amount of $8,974.38. I would request a motion to approve that tax assessment appeal.
So Chair will make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zimmerman. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means when someone has their property reassessed, there's a determination of whether their tax liability is appropriate. In this scenario, it means that when it was reassessed, there is an additional $8,000 of tax assessed to the property.
Well, that was for the underpayment of taxes.
The underpayment. Oh, okay. Okay.
Going forward, there will be a higher assessment.
Higher assessment then. Okay. And so this happens from time to time, and sometimes it's on the plus side, and sometimes it's on the minus side.
I keep it on the plus side.
That's right, if we can. All right, with that, I will call the question. All in favor of approving that property assessment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Last is citizens' comments. Non-agenda items, any citizens' comments?
Good evening again, Commissioners. I know this is torture twice in one evening.
Not at all, Tom.
Two issues I'd like to make comments on. One, the first part is thank you for the proclamation about Juneteenth, but I'm disappointed you didn't make it a municipal holiday, just a day of remembrance and reflection. I think it's important for us to have taken that further step, and I urge you to reevaluate that in the future, especially with it shortly becoming a federal holiday.
So, Tom, that resolution is that we will celebrate it each year.
You will celebrate it, but it doesn't necessarily make it a holiday for the employees.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Okay?
And
It's not a municipal holiday, it's a ceremonial day.
I know, and I'll make a point on that in just a moment. Thank you.
Okay?
You
And I
reminded me
understand that may mean
Yep.
negotiations with the
Got it.
police union and things like that.
You got it. Yeah.
Okay? But I think the excellent managers we have would appreciate the day off and should have it.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Secondly, given that June is Pride Month, I think it should have been some sort of recognition by this township about pride. Okay? I am disappointed in this Board of Commissioners did not take that step forward. And it's something that you guys should do. At some point, I would appreciate if you would. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And you're welcome back as well. Dennis?
Evening. Before I get into my topic, I would like to say I found that gentleman's arguments very compelling. He increased signage and a little reflective paint. That one go. Seemed to make sense to me. Third time, Hatfield Aquatic Center. I'm going to ask some simple questions. I hope to get some simple answers. Knowledge is power. Obviously, a political agenda being pushed. Restrict our rights. What we're entitled to, what we paid for, what we're used to, what we should expect as services provided by that center. So, have you, Commissioner, assuming you're taking direction from the powers that be in Norristown as to what's being implemented over there, is that fair?
Hey, Dennis, one of the things that, we appreciate all comments, you know that, you've been here before. One of the things that we like to do in citizens' comments is for people to make the point, but if a commissioner is asked a question, they can follow up and answer at a future time. And so what I'd like, if you could, just tell it, I'm particularly interested in, you said that there are rights that are being limited down at the Aquatic Center. Is there something specific going on at the Aquatic Center that is of a concern?
The lack of chairs seems optically not right. I'm looking for a scientific, medical, common sense reason for those chairs not to be out there right now. Now, not taking direction from Norristown, then I'm assuming you're making these decisions off the top of your head. So, that being the case, then can you give me some guidance as to your thinking as to what's going on over there, where there are no chairs. Now, this is coming off of not opening last year, which was a farce. And I was there today. You have teenagers sitting outside with masks on. Social distancing, nothing, no chairs or equipment on the concrete siding of the pool. Everybody has to be in the grass. So that's obviously silly. So I'm hoping you can give me your reasoning behind that.
I think the number one reason is safety, in case there has to be an evacuation. And also, they need more space because of the social distancing to line up for some of the slides. So in order to have space for the participants on the slides, there's not enough room to have chairs all over the deck. And then again, safety reasons, should there be an evacuation needed for whatever reason, they would hinder that evacuation. And it's a lot clean eyesight for the lifeguards to be able to see everybody. It was just a decision made by our Park and Recs department.
Is that you?
No.
Dennis, just a few comments. We have a pool board made up of residents from Hatfield Borough and Hatfield Township that help direct and guide the policy for the facility. Commissioner Andrus also attends those meetings. It was a group decision, a group effort by residents, staff, elected officials. One point before you continue, Dennis. The hot tub's open. I know that's where you hang out, right? You got your hot tub open, and you can bring your own chair. We're not preventing you from bringing a chair. So come and enjoy the facility. It's your favorite place to be, and just enjoy the summer.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
But again, I'm just looking for information, I'm not looking for conflict, okay? So if I can get 2 or 3 questions answered, I'm gone. Asked first, safety by having no chairs. So the fact that they sat there for the last 10 years means there was a safety issue for the last 10 years, and now we're solving that by removing the chairs. Okay.
The social distancing for the slides.
That was the first point. That's
One
next.
second.
And
Hold on.
I'm almost.
Hold on, one moment.
What happened last time?
No,
Just
hold on.
asking a couple simple
I need to clear
questions.
something up. I'm not sure why you're looking at Debbie to answer those questions, right? I think Aaron just told you it was collectively a Park and Recs board decision for which I attend. Okay, you may not like the answers that come out of that board. We'll try to explain them to you, but please don't become combative over it. That Commissioner Zimmerman is a part of us, and I'm not sure we're looking at her for an answer.
I looked at her for an answer because she answered the question.
Go ahead, Dennis. Ask the other
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. You all realize social distancing is a thing of the past, yes?
Dennis, we have employees that are kids. We're trying to keep them safe. They're 14, they're 15. They haven't been vaccinated. We're just trying to keep people safe. There's people in here that probably their kids work there, Dennis. I mean, these are
That's
children.
correct. But to keep our children and our grandchildren safe.
At what point are we going to follow the science, not opinion?
You let us worry about our children.
Dennis, do you have one last question, I think?
No, I would say if the reason there's no chairs out there and the masks are being worn is for safety, which again, I think I've made the point that the chair sat out there for 10 years, so that's adjective. And social distancing is a thing of the past, and is there any other legitimate reasons for the chairs not to be out there other than opinion?
Okay. Well, I know that
Maybe if I come back next month and you guys had a month to investigate, do your homework, look at the science of this thing, and then maybe we could have the chairs that we paid for and are used to for the last half a generation, maybe we can get them back.
Look,
Is it possible?
Yeah, we do everything in concert with the pool board, right? The folks who Jerry meets with and he chairs that group. He guides that group. And, you know, we're not above having conversations even in that group as to everything with regard to chairs and accessibility and whatnot. So we'll do do the right thing and have a conversation. They'll discuss that at their pool meeting. And if you want to reach out for me or Aaron at any time and find out how that discussion concludes, we're happy to do that. But I can tell you that prior to the season, we had meetings, public meetings with regard to this. And the issue that Commissioner Zimmerman, all the commissioners have mentioned, in particular about safety, that has been the overriding number one factor in all decisions made by the pool board, again, with Jerry's guidance. He, by the way, has more experience with that pool than I tease him about it a little bit because he's been a leader in that regard for many years, but he's got more pool experience than any other commissioners by far, and so we're happy that he continues to lead that.
I certainly appreciate his expertise.
He's an expert.
Yeah, I can only go by what I've seen visually for the last 10 years, and there's like 200 chairs sitting out there. I never saw evacuations or people stumbling over each other. So what you're telling me is that if I come back in a month's time, that you will evaluate the science of the social distancing and the mask, and you're open to maybe changing, or?
Boy, I told you what we would be willing to do. I didn't get that far. What I
Is
said was...
Is that a reasonable expectation that you would look at the science at some point?
Yes, things change all the time. As things change, as the science changes, as the virus starts to go away, dissipates, we will be reevaluating, yes, all the time. So what you're talking about tonight might not even be in effect a month from now.
Right.
And that is my concern, because the pool should have been open last year, which, surrounding communities were open with no ramifications. And I want to know at what point reality sets in around here. I mean, you're really going to look at the science, you're concerned about your kids, but when you're looking at a 99.64 survival rate for older people, where is the danger to the children? If there's no danger to the children, why mandate them wearing masks? Okay, I'm really not interested in opinion. I really would appreciate if you'd look at the science, and I'll leave it there. If you could look at it, I'd really appreciate if those chairs were back where they belong. I feel like, again, the same political agenda that's been running for the last 16 months. Sir, history is not on your side.
Right, so...
It's politics. It's not health. It's not safety. It's politics. There's no shade in it. There's no way of getting around it.
Let me sum
go
up.
ahead.
Let me sum up, and then we'll.
And
then
I
we'll
will
be
go,
done.
and I appreciate your time. Thank
Back
you.
next month, but nothing may change at all from now till then. So don't come back expecting something different. It'll be discussed. Don't expect to come back and see something different, though, unless we consent as a group. That's the best thing for the community and the...
Who were you going to consult for your information? Could you tell me that? Are you looking at the Are you looking at the CDC, the state?
Dennis, the decision will have nothing to do with COVID. The decision will have to do with operational issues and discussions with our staff. I could probably tell you that there's not going to be chairs this year. Bring your own chair, sit in the hot tub, enjoy the facility.
The grass.
Sit wherever you want, Dennis.
Dennis, let me...
Bring a chair, sit wherever you want.
Do you understand my frustration with this thing at all?
Let me wrap this up.
Not particularly.
Let me wrap this up, and then we'll conclude,
I
okay? Because I
appreciate
want to
it.
reassure somebody, I want to reassure the group here and those who watch. I do take a strong difference of opinion with you, with what you said, when you say that these decisions that we made last year, closing the pool, this year having adjustments, were made because of politics. I have to tell you, the 5 people that sit up here would never allow that. We don't do that. We don't make decisions in Hatfield because of politics. And you know us well enough. You've been enough meetings. Hopefully, we reflect that. The issues of pool, the potholes, the parks, the people, the public safety, we do not ever allow politics. The Republican or Democrat designations get in the way of that. Never have, never will. And so I have real concern with that statement. Now, on the issue of, as someone who is in the borough, who has taxpayer dollars that flow into that facility and your use of it, and you're questioning us, have at it. You have every right to do so. But I want to reassure you, and I want the people in this room to know, we do not make decisions based on political agendas.
Well, then you're saying you're basing your decisions on science, and in which case you're embarrassing yourself because the science is against you. It's not even close.
You may be very much in disagreement with our decisions.
I'm talking facts.
But that is,
You're giving
that is
opinions,
the
and I'm
position we
saying the
find
facts
ourselves.
state that science is not backing up your decisions, and it didn't last year either.
We'll look at
It did not last year either. I'm going to
gave-
leave on this note.
Yes.
Communist Chinese Party, illicit press, Democratic Party. It's a political agenda.
Dennis, thank you for coming out. We appreciate it.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, any other citizens' comments?
Well, you guys get 2 land hours, 2 times today. Yay. I just wanted to also restate and make sure that I followed up with the Juneteenth conversation as well. I wanted to piggyback off of something that Sheikh had said with regard to inalienable rights. We all wake up with the right every day to reflect and to celebrate. If you're free, which we all in this room have had the pleasure of enjoying, that freedom, we've had the ability to every day reflect and celebrate and be celebratory if we so choose to be. What we were asking for, though, is an official recognition, though, of Juneteenth as a municipal holiday, which is very different from proclaiming, which was very similar to the proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation, that proclaimed freedom, which did not actually give it. So we do appreciate the proclamation of our inalienable rights, but what we are asking for was for it to be fully recognized. For example, just as July 4th is, just as Memorial Day is, an American Day of freedom and celebration that is not only understood or not only celebrated because we choose to be, but is also enacted as law. So I just wanted to make sure that I was very clear about that. And then the second thing was we wanted to introduce Ricky Buttacavalli, who runs the Pride Pack here, and we wanted to ask the Board of Commissioners to please consider raising the Pride flag, as June is Pride Month. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And actually, former Commissioner Landauer touched on it when he said earlier, he knows that from a personnel perspective, we have contractual obligations with some of our employees, so we don't have, we have some things to discuss. So, but thank you for Tom, and thank you, Corinne, for your points. Yes, sir. I think you raised your hand. If you need to go to the podium. And give us your name and address, please.
My name is Richard Buttacavalli. I am a resident of Lansdale. I would like the opportunity to speak for 1 minute, though, if I could, as I do represent a LGBT Chamber of Commerce in Montgomery County. So I just wanted to follow up about Pride Month. We're doing it this year mostly for the kids. This is about the kids. So many of our kids are bullied and ostracized from their community. They're struggling with their sexuality. And I have to say, I'm so pleased this year that Montgomery County has a record number of pride flag raisings this year. The county itself has raised about 17 flags, 10 of them on park trails and historical sites, and then some of their buildings that they have. Additionally, very happy to say, in fact, tonight I was sharing it with some of my friends here. Conshohocken just voted tonight 6-0 to raise the pride flag. Lansdale has raised it. North Wales has raised it. Upper Gwinnett has raised it. East Norden, West Norden, Upper Moreland. So I would love to see Hatfield partake in this. We are curating all this history at the Montgomery County, or the Historical Society of Montgomery County. So I would love to see Hatfield partake in this celebration. And again, mostly for the kids. Kids are committing suicide. I know that when they drive by Hatfield Township and see the flag raised, you may save a life. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, I was going to say, can you share your information with Mr. Bibro if you haven't already done so? Because I'm not sure entirely what the efforts have been at the other locations, but it'd be interesting for us to look at that. Or you can stick around after the meeting if that's fine. That's the easiest way. All right. All right. I don't see anyone else going up to the podium. Oh, Cindy, you're heading up?
I think it's a good idea about the pride flag. And I agree, it is about the kids. And also, as far as the pool goes, my understanding as a nurse is that the newest emerging form of this virus is coming out of England now. And they are considering it much more contagious than any previous variant. And children do still need to be socially distant and wear masks around each other. And my understanding is of the science is that most of the time we're not talking about fatalities, but some of these kids have had what look to be metabolic changes, cognitive brain changes in their metabolic functioning in their immune systems that last a very, very long time, and we don't know what the end of that is. So I would just urge the township to err on the side of caution for the children at the pool. I think it makes sense. The other thing, I know it's getting late, but at the last meeting, I spoke about what happened at the Frick Basin of the unauthorized and inappropriate and unlawful mowing that took place as requested by our commissioner in Ward 1. And like 2 days later, I believe it was, we walked the basin. And I don't know if you shared the email that I sent, or no, I guess it was a text I sent to you, photos.
Photos, yes.
And we had found turtles at the basin prior to the mowing, and then after the mowing, when we walked the basin, within just a few minutes of getting out there, we found a dead baby turtle. And the other experience that we had that was interesting is that we went on the side of the cattails. Half of the cattails were mowed, and we walked on the side of the cattails that had been cut and mowed down and mashed down. And the birds that nest in that area were absolutely frantic to get rid of us. And that to me is further evidence that we disturbed the nesting ground of these native birds, which is not lawful. And I was thinking about the role of commissioners the other day and thinking about how we say President Ziffel. And that may give the wrong impression because actually You are the president of the board, but you are not an executive. Your role is a legislator, like all the others here. And what that means is that when you have a board meeting, you legislate about things that are done in our township. But there is no governor or president or even mayor of Hatfield Township. And this board is empowered by the law to hire a township manager. Sits over there, and we're lucky to have him. And it's his job to hire the staff that serve us in this town. And he directs the staff. And it is improper for any one commissioner to go to a department head employed by this township and ask them to make a significant change to the property here. The decisions that have to do with property and open space in our town have to be made on this board. And when you step out of that role, you're stepping out of your lawful authority. You are exercising power, and by the way, this was done when the manager had taken a holiday. This was done when I lived right on the edge of the basin. I didn't know anything about it. The other board members did not know. So the public didn't know. The manager didn't know. The board didn't know. That is not the way to operate as a democratic elected official. And my question tonight is, when I came here 2 weeks ago, I asked for two things to be done. First of all, the township employee who knew darn well that it was inappropriate, and he knew darn well that it was unauthorized by the township manager, I asked for some disciplinary action to be taken for him. And I realize it's personnel manager, and I know you don't have to answer, but I hope that happened. And secondly, I asked this board to hold the commissioner, Greg Lees,
Right here, ma'am.
accountable. I know who you are. I know. I'm
I
looking right
understand.
at
So
you.
you have some things that are
Excuse me, let me
incorrect.
finish.
You have some things that are incorrect.
Excuse me.
You're making public statements that are false. Okay? So if you want, I will give you the facts of what
Okay,
happened.
You'll have to wait till I'm finished.
Okay, I'll let you finish, ma'am.
I asked the board to hold the commissioner accountable. And I don't know if that happened. I hope it did.
So, Cindy, the township manager was well aware of what happened. I received complaints from property owners whose property adjoins the basin because of damage from the storm that had shifted rocks and caused stagnant water. There was cattails that had grown within the area of the drainage pipe. I went out with the director of public works, with the homeowners, looked at it, and they asked if I could have the cattails removed from that sluiceway, have the rocks regraded so that the basin would function properly. And that's exactly what I asked the township manager and the director of public works to do, and that is exactly what was done. People from Public Works were asked to please walk that ground before they went through with mowers and make sure they didn't kick out any fawns or any nests, didn't run over any turtles or anything of the sort. That was done. They walked it. Okay? Everything that is man-made requires maintenance from time to time. Mosquito-borne illnesses are a serious issue. They can cause illness to humans, they can cause heartworm in cats and dogs, as well as wild animals. All that was done was for like 40 feet. We cut back the cattails and they trimmed the grass around the cattails. The rest of the reservoir is fine. It is naturalized, and I understand now that it is flowing properly. We have to do maintenance, okay? We have an ecologist that we just recently brought on board to help us with the maintenance. But in the meantime, I cannot expose residents of this township, property owners, taxpayers, to mosquito infestations, stench from algae that's there, from stagnant water, and health risks. So unfortunately, as much as I'd like to protect the wildlife, and I do love animals, I do have to look out for the taxpayers when they ask me and they come to me and they say, hey, can you please just have this moved back so that we can get the water flowing so that we don't have this mosquito issue and we don't have the algae and the stench issue. That's what was done. Mr. Bieber was made aware. He told me about your agreement. I said, I understand that. But at the same time, I have to look out for the health and welfare of residents of the township. So would you please just make that minor adjustment? And that's what was done. I don't know about the baby turtle that you found, where he was. He wasn't run over by a tractor. He wasn't cut up, right? Animals die in the wild all the time. Okay. Now,
Mr. Lees, wait a minute.
I have lived here since 1973.
You did more than that. Wait a minute, wait. The evidence, if you go out there, the whole basin was mowed. This is unlawful during this time of year to disturb the nesting grounds of native species. It is unlawful. It is not within your authority
The
to
township
go
solicitor
to...
disagrees.
No, to go to a township employee
Kristen.
and instruct them to do something like this. It is not within your authority. You did it behind the backs of this board.
Didn't do anything behind the back of the board.
Yes, you did. None of the
That-
board
we
knew
have-
about
We
this.
have a ward system within the township. Each commissioner is able to make adjustments within their ward as necessary, just as having potholes filled, having snow removed in front of people's houses. I had a sinkhole filled in front of a resident's house on Long Lexington Road. I didn't have to go to the whole board to do that. I had snow removed over on Independence Drive over the winter. My first week as commissioner, I had people complaining to me because people's dogs were crapping in their yard, and I had to put up signs in that neighborhood to prohibit people to make them clean up after their dogs. I didn't have to go to the whole board for that either. Just like the police chief doesn't have to come to the board to take care of minor things within his department.
Maintenance of this basin has been discussed at this board for years, and everyone was in agreement about what should be done. And this was done without the knowledge of the manager and without the knowledge of the president of this board, without the knowledge of this board.
Commissioner
Cindy,
Zipfel
let
and
me-
I have had
Greg?
several conversations about this. Go ahead, Bill.
Afterwards.
Got it.
I want to reassure Cindy of something. That is, she asked me to have a conversation not only with, really with each of the commissioners and how we work and how the five of us work together, and I'm assuring you, without getting into the details of those conversations have been held. Having said that, that's probably the most succinct way I can explain it to you.
Can we be reassured that this will not happen again, Tom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ryan Gober, 1228 Quincy Court. Just one comment about if you're an elected official and somebody comes to you and complains and wants you to do something that's outside your authority, you can listen to them and say, I understand what your problems are, and that's, you want me to do something that's outside my authority, and you can say, I'd rather not. The head director of Public Works, when approached by a commissioner and asked to do something that he does not have authority to ask you to do and is against the policy that the commissioners have adopted, can say, I can see why you would want to do that to please your constituent, but I'd rather not. An employee of Public Works, when asked to destroy nests of migrating birds and turtle nesting grounds violating federal law and state law, when asked to do this by his manager, should say, I would rather not do that.
Thank you, Ryan. Charter.
Edward Tarter, Downing Drive. I'm one of the residents is on the opposite side of this conversation. We discussed it in pretty good length at the last meeting, but I don't want to let it go with one side discussion tonight. I'll repeat what I said last meeting. I started in September of last year to try and get the grass, agriculture, whatever you want to call it out there, cut like it's supposed to be according to the original designation of a naturalized basin twice a year. It didn't get done properly, and I didn't raise hate and discontent, but I continued to push for it to be done. I contacted the township manager repeatedly, starting last September, then October, then November. Didn't get done. The cattails never got cut back. The weeds didn't get cut back. I was told that a contractor named Clarkson, I believe, Clarkson or something like that, was supposed to come out when it wasn't wet. That didn't happen. January, I proceeded again. In February, I proceeded again to bring this to the attention of township commissioner, township manager. This is not an ongoing thing that was not known to this board. It's been ongoing. It's brought to the township manager's attention. I brought it to his attention. He then said the township would send the public works director out, or let him know about it. A township employee came out and I approached him and he was out there to look at it. It was not just for the sake of cutting this stuff. It was because the water was stagnating. It was there for months. It's never been there in the 30 years I've lived there that way. The washout that we had pushed the stones, barricading it, and causing a pond. I said the cattails need to be cut back so you can find the stones to move to get rid of this dam. That's why that was done. Grass being cut was not something that was pushed, but it was supposed to be done anyhow, according to what I understand. In the spring and the fall are supposed to be cut. So I find problem with this being pushed through without anybody knowing about it. I talked to the township manager, talked to public works director, and I happened to see my township commissioner at the election, the day of the elections, and mentioned it to him. I was not getting any specific action. I was getting, we'll get to it for 6 months. I want to applaud my commissioner. The day I mentioned it, he had the township public works director out there. We discussed it, and it was a matter that he was already aware of. So this is not something that happened overnight. I applaud him for following up on my and the other township residents' needs out there. There are other people that feel the same way I do, but they're not here tonight. I'll let them speak for themselves.
Thank you, Ed. All right, I don't see anyone else going up to the podium, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zimmerman. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks. Have a great Juneteenth on Saturday.